Major Music.
What's up? Back with another video. If this is your first time here, from time to time I post videos such as we're going to get into today, which is we're going to talk about Audio Unit version 3, which is a format for audio plugins on the iPad platform. And real quick, before I get into the topic, you could actually follow me on Instagram at d._majormusic, same thing on TikTok, and you can look me up by the same thing on Facebook actually. I'll also be on Twitter at d.mme. Now, if you're a creator that's been using iPad for music production for quite some time, this probably won't be for you because I'm pretty sure you know exactly what Audio Unit version 3 is and you've been using plugins for quite some time. So recently, Logic Pro was finally released on the iPad. Now, I can't really do a video on Logic Pro because that's kind of what I do off the channel to some degree, but I can tell you about some of my favorite plugins along the way that I like to use with the iPad. If you're a music creator that's used to making beats on a Mac or a PC, then you're probably used to the VST format, which is the format for audio plugins on those particular platforms. Well, just like VSTs on the iPad, you're gonna have Audio Unit version 3. For Audio Unit version 3, those plugins can come as effects plugins for like mixing and mastering, or they can also be synthesizer plugins and samplers and just a whole lot of other music production plugins that you can use to create or mix your music for a commercial release. Logic Pro is not going to be the first app that ran Audio Unit version 3 plugins. As I said, it's been around for quite some time. In fact, my early recollection of it, I've been using Beatmaker 3 since 2017 when it came out around that time. And Audio Unit version 3 was a thing around that time. I want to say also maybe even a little bit before that with Beatmaker 2. Actually, and Beatmaker 2 around that time actually used IAA, which is InterApp audio plugins, which they do still have some of those around. Now the difference is Audio Unit version 3 allows you to record notes in your DAW, so in this case Logic, Cubase's, GarageBand, Beatmaker 3, just to name a few. As to where InterApp audio, the best example I can give for InterApp audio is if you have someone, for example, playing a live instrument that is mic'd up, you're recording the audio into the DAW opposed to recording MIDI notes into the DAW. Now, sometimes you may have to do it in a couple of takes, especially if whatever you're playing is slightly off. Now, you may want it that way, but difference is with audio versus MIDI. Of course, MIDI, I can go in and move the notes along the grid to adjust the timing if it's off a little bit, or if I want to add a little bit of swing to it, you can do that with MIDI notes. Logic, for example, will come with a really good factory library of sounds. And then other DAWs as well that I've used on the iPad, such as I would say I use Beatmaker 3, and you guys probably see me do other Beatmaker 3 videos as well. Those two apps, Beatmaker 3 and Logic Pro, have a great selection of sounds. I know like Beatmaker 3, they do have their own sound store, which you can go in and purchase other expansions for Beatmaker 3, as to where Logic, they're gonna have a little bit more of a factory library on it. Now, in regards to Audio Unit version 3 plugins, now Moog has a great selection of their own synthesizers that they have available in the App Store, such as the Model D, the Model 15, the Animoog, and the Animoog Z. Now, some of my other favorite developers when it comes to Audio Unit version 3 synth plugins is going to be AudioKit Pro. They actually not only offer apps at a really great price, but sometimes they offer free apps that are going to be AUV3. So definitely check them out. There's so many. I like Digitalism 2000, which has a lot of those early 2000 synthesizer sounds. Then there's the Bass 808 synth. If you like those lo-fi synthesizer sounds, then there's also the VHS synth. But they have a whole selection that you might want to just go through and see what you like, see if you can pull up some videos, check out the audio synth page on the iPad OS App Store. I also like the Mark I Rhodes House plugin, which was developed from the AudioKit Pro engine, which when I actually interviewed the co-founder of AudioKit Pro, Matthew Fetcher, on my podcast, the Major Music Lounge podcast. And during that conversation, I never really realized how many Audio Unit version 3 plugins were developed using the AudioKit Pro engine. So definitely check out the House Mark I Rhodes plugin. Also, another YouTuber who's also a great producer had a hand in developing the House Mark I Rhodes plugin, and that's Henny the Business. I know a lot of y'all know Henny. Shout out to Henny for developing this app. And for all the producers that are looking for a good sampler to use inside of Logic or really any other DAW on the iPad, I would definitely look into Segments by Elliott Garage. I like it because it's a pretty simple and easy to use sampler. You just load your sampler in from the Files app and you could chop your samples in real time. And you could also use Segments either in standalone mode or as an Audio Unit version 3 plugin in an app like Logic, Cubase, or Beatmaker. And then another great sampler that is very popular on the iPad is going to be the Koala sample. I want to actually shout out Impression, who's a producer that uses the Koala Sampler app. He uses it mainly in standalone, but he's built a really good following on YouTube just off of the beats that he makes in Koala Sampler. You definitely want to check him out. Again, the name is Impression. Shout out to Impression. But he would be a really great resource if you're looking to gain any type of info about the Koala Sampler app or just to check out his really cool videos. But the Koala Sampler would be another great sampler that you can use inside of Logic Pro as a Audio Unit version 3 app. Now, outside of that, if you're talking about mixing plugins, my personal favorites when it comes to mixing plugins is going to be the Mixbox from IK Multimedia. Now, when I purchased it, that's when they used to sell it as a standalone Audio Unit plugin, which at the time I think I got it for around 30 bucks, and it went normally for about 70 bucks. Now I think they charge some type of membership in order for you to just use Mixbox. So if you do want to go with the membership, I understand, like, you know, there's a lot of monthly subscriptions going on right now, and I personally, I don't like doing subscriptions, so I would never recommend to anyone unless you really wanted to use it. But for anyone, like, for example, that bought Mixbox a long time ago, one of the cool things that IK Multimedia has done is they're actually letting those users keep their full version with updates without necessarily making them have to do the membership. So I think that's really cool for IK Multimedia. Now you also want to check out FabFilter. Now I have the Pro Q3 EQ plugin, but they have a whole list of plugins in the App Store that you could check out. So again, if you are transitioning from making your beats on a computer and you're looking for really great quality plugins that you can mix down your recording sessions or your beats in, then I would say FabFilter will probably be some of the best plugins for mixing and audio engineering on the iPad that I found. Now maybe at some point you're gonna get other developers like a Waves or an Isotope on board to make their plugins available from the Mac to the iPad. As of right now, they don't have anything in the App Store. Another great developer that I like their mixing apps is going to be Bliss. I think that's how you say it, Bliss. Now, as I look here on my iPad, I have the reverb for Bliss. I have the compressor. I have Monolith, which is a synthesizer plugin. I have Shimmer, Sidekick, which is a Sidekick compression plugin, and they also have another plugin called Groovebox. And one of the other things that I like about Bliss is their apps aren't too expensive. I think, the most I might have paid for one of their apps is like $10 or so. I even use a lot of their apps on my Mac similarly, so definitely want to check them out. And then Korg also, this is kind of going back to the synthesizer apps, but I have two of the Korg apps. Aside from like Korg Gadget, I have the iMono Poly and then also the Electribe Wave, which are going to both be AUV3 format. But you want to check out Korg in the App Store as often as you can, because they do like to have sales, such as AudioKit Pro is another developer. Their apps aren't expensive, but they do either like to have some free apps or they run a lot of great sales from time to time. I don't want to make this a long video. I just wanted to come on, talk about AUV3 plugins and some of my personal favorite apps to use for music production on the iPad. Definitely go ahead and check them out in the App Store, especially if you're new to iPad music production. I did again want to make this video because with the release of Logic Pro recently, I know a lot of producers are considering getting into iPad music production. But I mean, even if you don't use Logic, some other great DAWs, as I mentioned, Cubase will be one, Beatmaker 3 to be another, even GarageBand, which is still going to be free if maybe you didn't want to purchase one of the other apps and just use whatever you have. So don't sleep on GarageBand either, because you could use those AUV3 plugins as I was mentioning. Now, if you found this video useful, go ahead, hit the subscribe button. You could also follow me once again on social platforms at d._major music. That's going to be Instagram and TikTok. Just look me up, d.major music on Facebook and d.mme on Twitter. So until next time.
Major Music.